I thought we could talk about somebody raised a very important issue regards the wildlife officers who are on Goslow. But I thought we may not be able to discuss that because I do not have enough data about what is happening. But it's regrettable really if these guys are on Goslow, uh, seeing that they really play a very, very important role in managing wildlife. But today I want us to discuss on climate change and the policy or climate change policy. Yeah, I think policy is very, very important. When we're talking about climate change, I think we can't divorce it uh, from the realities of policy direction. For us to be able to implement these climate change, whether mitigation and adaptation measures properly, we need a policy that speaks to that, and there should be some firmness in the policy. Let me just take you through the types of policies that we can have on climate change. We have number one, mitigation policies, and number two, we have adaptation policies. Okay, and the mitigation policies, that's where we have legislation that looks at increase or I mean reduction in emissions and so forth and so forth. And adaptation, we have policies that we develop as nations that are called national development national plans for adaptation. And then we have got climate resilient infrastructure that is still under adaptation policy, strengthening of warning signal systems, signal signs warning systems. Then we can also talk about supporting of vulnerabilities. These are some of the adaptation measures that we as a people can undertake. Then I'm very much interested to focus on the key challenges that affect policy and its implementation. Number one is lack of funds, especially when we're talking about developing countries. Yeah, lack of funds may really affect how we are going to implement, we are going to support the policy framework. Then the other thing is the political resistance. Yeah, in other places you may have politicians who are not willing to do anything about climate change, yeah, because of other perceptions. Okay, and also sometimes is policy inconsistency. When policy is not consistent enough, then we have these kind of problems with regards to policy. Then we can also have limited technical capacity. Yeah, if we don't have technical people who can really bring about the implementation of these policies, then we have a problem. Yeah, so this can be another issue. Then we can also talking about competing development priorities. This is very, very important. Yeah, sometimes countries may have some priorities in developing, and they would be thinking that climate change cannot take the first priority. Okay, it can wait. Yeah. So when we have such competing development priorities, climate change policy implementation becomes very, very difficult. Then we can have weak enforcement mechanisms. Okay, so in place, if we put mechanisms to enforce this climate policy, then we may have some big problems. I'd want to hear from you what you think, yeah, on especially on the key challenges. Okay, like in Zambia here we have the policy, but maybe we might be having some problems around these key challenges that we're talking about. Okay, how do we go about it? How do we overcome the problem of funding? How do we overcome the problem of competing development needs? How do we overcome the problem of weak enforcement mechanisms, if any? How do we overcome the problem of lacking technical capacity, okay, to do the implementation? If it is political will, how do we overcome the political intent, especially when it comes to policy? Okay, I would want to hear from you. Last week it was so good, people were able to react to what we discussed. Today, please let us do. And if you have got information about the Zawa thing, please come aboard and let's discuss these issues here. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Bye bye from here. Bye. I salute you.